theme in our forefather Jacob's life is blessings, both receiving and giving them. In this vein, we have placed a blessing or wishes card for the baby with a pen at each plate on the table outside. We would love if you, those who surround our baby at this special moment in his life, could each fill out a card for him so that we can compile a book of blessings that Jacob and Hashem can treasure as he grows. So, Jacob Isaac, following the prompts that you'll see on the blessing cards, Mordecai and I hope you love life and the light and beauty we know you will bring to it each day. We hope you always cherish those who strive to help you best achieve your dreams. We hope you dream about helping others and filling your life with Torah and happiness. And we hope you always answer the question, what is your name? With the pride that comes from honesty and lovingly knowing yourself, knowing your strengths and your truth, and always feeling the love and support of your family and all those around you. Thank you again for joining me.
I had Jen read over my speech because she's the better speechwriter and giver, so I can't put in the thanks in my speech, but I can put it now in an ad-lib fashion. But thank you to Jen, much the way she said thank you to me for all that she's gone through, both in the pregnancy and the delivery and the postpartum period. We really, as a family, appreciate it. So, our son's middle name was chosen actually in memory of Jen's step-grandfather. We are trying to see actually if Jen's grandmother can connect with us virtually from Israel. He was known as Saba Yitzchak or Yitzchak Ozabel. He passed away last year in Israel at the age of 93. Jen's grandmother, as I mentioned, his wife, lives in Israel and unfortunately is actually ill at this time, and we're thinking about her and wishing her a speedy recovery and hoping that she's either watching now or soon later today. When thinking about our son's name, Yitzchak, and its origin biblically, the following verse in Bereshit, in Genesis, struck me as poetically and metaphorically very appropriate to Saba Yitzchak. Vayetze Yitzchak lasuach basadeh. And Isaac went out to suach, in Hebrew, in the field. The word suach in Hebrew of this verse has been interpreted widely by commentators. Rashi, following the Gemara or Talmud's interpretation, says that the word suach means tefillah or prayer. It is one of the key sources for the daily afternoon prayer, mincha. And in another funny Aaron story, last year after coming home from Camp Stone and seeing the Beit HaMikdash recreation there, and I told him that he was soon going to be in school and regularly davening, he said, "Oh, why can't we just bring korbanot instead?" But back to Suach in this pasuk, it's one of the key sources for the daily afternoon prayer for mincha. In contrast, and in a seemingly mundane interpretation, the Fiskuni, unlike Rashi, proposes that lasuach simply means to speak with a person who needs to converse with him. Saba Yitzchak, for those who knew him, loved to converse. He not only loved it, but he excelled at it. He was a joy to talk with and had a knack for listening and remembering facts about others. He lived a varied life in 3 countries, having been born in Germany in 1924, emigrating with his family to New York just before his bar mitzvah, and then in the late 1980s moving to Israel and later marrying Jen's grandmother. He could connect with anyone and was a master of Jewish geography. Having professionally been a dentist and run his practice from his home, his living room very appropriately served as his waiting room. For Saba Yitzchak, the close conversations that could take place in a living room were in a way sacred. And indeed, the word suach, as Rashi notes, connotes prayer. I see it as no coincidence that the mundane conversations between humans and the divine dialogue can both be captured with one word, lasuach, which is attributed to our forefather Yitzchak. Saba Yitzchak embodied this, seeing the tzelem Elohim, the spark of God or the godliness in all. A conversation with a fellow human for him was a divine exercise. Prayer was also central to Saba Yitzchak's existence, and he continued even in his last very difficult year to daven and wear his tefillin, even when very physically trying. In addition to Saba Yitzchak, Jen and I both have ancestors with the name Yitzchak, giving this name added meaning to us and our families. Jen's great-grandfather was a well-known businessman and Talmud Chacham, Irving Bunu, whose name in Hebrew was Yitzchak. My great-great-grandfather was Isaac, or Shalom Yitzchak Raskus, with the Shalom having been added later in life. Isaac Raskus, like Saba Yitzchak, moved from Europe to America and later in life retired in Israel. Back to Saba, I developed a close relationship with Saba from the moment I met him and Safta on Skype way back in 2007 when Jen and I first started dating. He had married Jen's grandmother 13 years earlier. We frequently saw Saba and Safta in Israel, and in the past they visited us as well, including attending the Pidyon of our oldest son Aaron while we were living in Texas. Lasuach, as interpreted differently by the Ibn Ezra and the Radak, also notes to explore or traverse, something Saba and Savta did in the 1990s, traveling to Asia and many destinations across the globe. As an aside, during one of our last visits with Saba, he recounted stories from his life. One story he noted was how when his family moved from Germany to New York in the 1930s, shortly before Sukkot, they did not have a sukkah. A neighbor who was a mohel invited them over for numerous meals and helped provide a warm welcome to the area. Saba seemed particularly touched by the kindness of that mohel, something Jen and I can certainly say we similarly feel regarding Richie as well, given all that he has done for us this past week in particular. Saba had an incredibly positive outlook on life. He had a varied and at times difficult life, having moved countries twice, spent 3 years in the American military during World War II, lost a number of close family members, and had a final year with failing health. Despite all this, at the age of 93, and I'm told throughout his life, he managed to find humor and happiness to share. His closing remarks to all conversations were always, shalom, shalom, with double wording, as if to emphasize the depth of peace he was wishing upon us. During his retirement in Israel, he spent over 2 decades learning in a kollel. His dedication to Judaism and Torah were impressive and a lesson to all. We hope that our son, who will carry his name, can aspire to many of these wonderful characteristics of Saba Yitzhak. We miss him dearly, but know that he is smiling from above, just as he did from below. Everyone's welcome to join us outside for the Sudat Mitzvah. And thank you so much for joining those who came from close and far.
Revanim levanecha shalom Yisrael. Revanim levanecha shalom Yisrael. Revanim levanecha shalom Yisrael. Revanim levanecha shalom Yisrael. You mean add it? You got it.
I don't know if anyone joined round 2. It doesn't look like it, but we'll get a recording.
Yeah, it'll be on.